Hi everyone, it's Nicole. Welcome back to my channel and another paper crafting video tutorial. Today we're celebrating Stamptember with the Clearly Besotted limited edition stamp set. Clearly Besotted is one of the very big fan favorites every year for Stamptember, and we're going to create a square card today. I don't create very many square cards, but they are super fun. This year, the limited edition exclusive is called Garden Gnomies. Absolutely darling, as always, from Clearly Besotted. And we're going to create, like I said, a square card, but I'm pairing it with products from other companies, like the Hip to Be Square window die cut from Mama Elephant and the brick stencil from Fawn. Now, this is a fairly simple looking, excuse me, design as far as card goes, but it's a really sweet little scene. So my story, as you guys know, I like to tell myself when doing a scene card, is that these little gnomies are peeking out this window and there's these flowers kind of trailing along the window frame. I really love this Hip to Be Square die. Truth be told, it's been out for a few months, I believe now, and I haven't used it yet, and I can see myself using it a lot. I had a lot of ideas, like especially think going forward towards the holidays and things like that. It is a really, really good die. And of course the brick stencil is always a good basic, but the real beauty of this design is the colors. And I decided pretty early on, I wanted to go with this rosy, peachy, not peachy, rosy pink, fuchsia magenta kind of color combination. And I want to keep it fairly simple and monochromatic. Sometimes the introduction of too many extra colors can almost take away from the design. So this is another very color heavy card, as are quite a few cards that I have been sharing here during Stamptember. It is Stamptember. And there are a lot of different options during Stamptember, whether it's coloring images, stamp layering images, or, you know, like we did in the Waffle Flower and Alex Siberia video where we can do emboss resist. There's lots of different things you can do, but these images I really think benefit from coloring. And so I am using Olo markers on Hammermill cardstock today. The Hammermill cardstock I use is smooth, and I have really almost switched completely to using it for my alcohol ink coloring, as I find the results are amazing. I think Olo does a really good job with pinks. I'm very, very particular with pinks. I don't really like neon when I'm coloring flowers. You guys probably don't either. And so I have found that these colors are amazing. A lot of these do include some of the newer colors that were released a few months ago from Olo. They had 32 new colors, and I think they fill in the pink colors beautifully. So you can see that I am going through and I'm kind of coloring. I colored all with 1-2 color combination, and then I'm going through and coloring several more with another color combination that is just barely different. It's just enough that it gives beautiful variety without being glaringly obvious that they're a different shade, much like you'd see in nature. I kind of liked that idea of them all being kind of in that same color combination or color family, which is the RV color, which is red violet. And I really loved that. I don't know, I just thought it worked really nice. And I purposely didn't color in my gnomes for quite a while. I saved them. I colored in the flowers they're all holding because I wasn't sure. I kind of thought, do I want to go with adding in another color? And the more I added in of these fuchsia colors and magenta colors, I guess, they're not really fuchsia. I would say they're more, well, maybe magenta. The more I just thought, I don't want to mess this up. I don't want to introduce a whole new color palette. I did pull in a light lighter red pink or red violet pink for a couple of little areas, but nothing too drastic. And I think that really works. I've talked about this in past videos. I think it's been a while. Sometimes the answer is more of a monochromatic look. I almost think that you can pull in too many colors sometimes. And I think our inclination is to want to use every crayon in the box, as the saying goes, which is great, but maybe think of it more like, especially if you're struggling with a card design. I've made a lot of cards over the last few weeks for STAMPtember, and sometimes that overwhelming feeling of trying to, make something brand new, you don't have to make something brand new. There are little things you can do to tweak. So I kind of found a color palette that worked and then went for it. The other thing I think is that can be very powerful and really make a statement on a card is I kept my background very simple, but added a few little touches and details that kind of level it up per se. I did do a little stenciling, but then I put a layer of vellum over it to soften it. I'm embarrassed to say this, but I had not used Tim Holtz's Lost Shadow ink. I mean, why in the world have I not used that yet? I used it to distress the frame, and I gotta tell you guys, you guys probably already all know that Lost Shadow is a great color. I don't know why I haven't used it before. It adds the perfect, subtle, soft bit of shadow and distress to this. Excuse me so much. So I am going to continue to color all of these in. I also purposely picked a very soft yellow green. My tendency is to usually go a little bit darker, and I actually kind of went down one level with my lighter green. So the darker green for my leaves is actually what I usually tend to use for my lighter shade. So I used it for darker, and then I went one down from that in the numbering system on the markers. I need to look and see exactly which one that is. It'll be listed down below, but that is what I used to create the soft effect for the leaves, and I loved it. I really like that color combination. Now, I made a misstep with this flower. I left it in because I wanted to show how I fixed it. So that one petal, I actually started with the wrong color. And so I kind of went all over the whole thing with my light shade, and I'm going to let that dry for a minute. I don't want to oversaturate the paper. And I left it in because I want to encourage you guys that if you make a misstep with coloring, it's not the end of the world. Most of the time it can be fixed. And if worse came to worse, I could always take one of my darker colors I just used and completely color over this. But I just switched up here to one of the other flowers, and I colored that one in. You'll notice that I went in with dark, and then I did light, and then I usually had to go back with my dark to kind of get some more of that detail into my flowers, since I'm only using 2 shades per floral. And then I'm going to go back down here on the bottom flower, and I'm going to just build out my color. And I think it ended up working really, really well. It ends up, I don't even think it looks bad at all. You might be able to tell a little bit that that petal is slightly darker now than the others, but not enough to bother me and to completely start over or anything like that. Something else I like to encourage in my videos is to not completely start over if possible. Now, there are times that I have, in fact, I have recently, I talked about it, I think, in a video that hasn't come out yet, even though you've seen the card. It was a Pretty Pink Posh card. I made a card and it was okay. I didn't love it. And I actually, like at the last second, redid it and did something. I mean, it didn't look anything. It was a completely different card. The only thing same about it was it used the shaker mushroom, but nothing else about it was the same at all. And I felt much better about it. So there are times that you have to start over, but for this, I knew I already loved this, like loved this. So I don't want to start over. Now I did in the center of some of the flowers use this yellow orange. It's kind of a goldish color and I like it. I thought it really kind of helped ground the flowers beautifully and I liked that little touch there. So now this is a different color combination that I was talking about, but still a red violet, but a very light red violet. And that's on purpose. Let's pull in another shade in the color family to add a little bit of interest. I'm not going to use this a ton. In fact, I think I only used it for shoes and a hat. And the other dumb thing I did, so I know there's been a little break in the video, I had started to color the beard of the gnome over on the right with pinks. I don't know why. That's not what I even intended to do. But I decided, I already knew I wanted one of the gnomes to be like hanging upside down, peeking out the window. And so he won the award for that because even though I was able to cover that up with my warm gray markers for the beard shading, you can see a hint of the pink. And so I thought, well, that's the one. He's going to win. Now, the rest of the accessories for my gnomes are going to be in some of those same shades that you've just seen, and I will break those down for you down in the description so you know which color combinations. I'll just list them as like 1, 2, and 3, so you know kind of how I broke those down. And then for the beards, this is where you really get the texture. Also, I did color in their skin and stuff, but the texture is the feathering technique. It's kind of a flicking with your marker. And I tend to start light, and then I did end up going back with my dark marker and adding in some extra detail because I felt like a bit of it got lost. You want it to have the illusion of hair. And so you can see how I'm kind of pulling down from the top, pulling up from the bottom, and leaving a light space in between, that highlight, and then going back with an even darker color. And sometimes in the moment you think, oh my gosh, that's too dark. But honestly, when I look back at the card now, I'm like, oh, it looks so good. You don't see necessarily like the dark places. You just see that wonderful texture and shadowing and shading that you get. I even went back to my gnome that had the pink beard mistake and gave him a little bit darker beard. All right, we got to get this last guy colored in, and then it is time to pull it all together. Now, I love that there are coordinating dies for so many of the components from this set. Obviously, all of the images from the set, and I did use all 4 images, have coordinating dies. And then there are 3 sentiment dies in the coordinating set. But there's way more sentiments than there are dies. So it gives you some nice options. We're actually going to use 2 of the sentiments that have coordinating dies and another sentiment that doesn't for our card. To start, I have my Lost Shadow ink and that Lawn Fawn brick stencil, and I'm just going to work on my glass mat today. I am stenciling this on that Dolphin cardstock. I've trimmed my cardstock just a scant smaller than a 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 card base. I took a white card base and I cut it square, basically. And I am doing kind of a messy, imperfect stenciling with the Lost Shadow on the Dolphin cardstock. And it goes on a little bit darker than I think it actually ends up looking, but I love it. And then I have a scant 4 1/4 square piece of vellum that I'm also going to layer over that, which instantly softens our brick background. Then I'm going to take my Lost Shadow and I am going to pull it down the sides and kind of rough it up and give it some texture, and through the center. And at first I was like, uh-oh, that's kind of dark. It lightens, you guys. It lightens quite a bit. It's so good. And I'm also going to do this for the 4 pieces that go around the window. Now, what I love about this hip to be square window that I didn't realize until I went to use it, it die cuts each of these pieces and then the window pane separately. So good. So, because if you want to die cut it from two different cardstocks and then like piece them together, you could totally do that. So, so fun. Okay, so I am going to glue my background panel to my card base, just like so. And then we are going to put some foam adhesive on the back of our frame, and we're going to glue that to the vellum. I've also tucked my little gnome that's going to be sticking out that top window, the unfortunate gnome who got the pink beard, that's been rectified. We're going to pop him up there, and then we're going to pop up this gnome down here in the bottom, just like so. I'm going to snip off the little bits of him that are sticking out, and that looks good. Now I would suggest placing one of your long sides and probably or bottom or top and one of your sides in place first, and then placing your window frame. I did put foam on the back of these components, so the whole window is popped up against the brick, which just gives us a nice little layer of dimension. And if you wanted to, you could tuck one of the gnomes back behind there for a little bit of, it'll, you know, make it a little bit more like he's peeking, but I wanted them to be very visible, so I'm not going to do that. But I'm placing foam on the back of each of these strips and then popping it in place. So just piecing it. And you can see just from the time of inking till now, see how that lost shadow has lightened, and it just makes the corners have that kind of shadowy look to them. It's not even the distress so much. I know it's a distress ink, but it's not bad. It's just the shadowing and shading that it provides. I am just loving it, and I'm, like I said, I'm embarrassed I haven't used it before. I don't know what's going on there, but I'm going to use it all the time. It looks amazing. Okay, and then we're going to place our little floral here, which I really think is my favorite image from this set. These florals are beautiful and very fun to color. So I'm just going to put a little bit of foam where it's not touching what's already been popped up, and then glue that down in place. So it really kind of covers up that bottom left window. Let's pop our last little guy in. And basically from here, it is just finishing details. Finishing details like adding sentiments and embellishments to finish this off. And yes, lots of little foam pieces were used in the creation of this card design. Okay, so let's move that out of the way, and let's go ahead and stamp You're Lovely right underneath our peeking gnome. Now I'm stamping on vellum, so my options here are stamping with clear embossing ink and heat embossing, which sometimes with a small sentiment, I think it's a little hard to read the sentiment. So I decided to do Cotton White Stays On, which is a solvent ink, and it will not smear on the vellum, so that's what I'm going to do. And before I stamp those remaining two greetings, you can see that I've already picked them. I have them laying out, so I kind of know even where they're going to go. I'm going to go in with a white pen. And this is the step and the detail for this card that I think really kicks it up a notch. And it's funny because it's a very simple and very easy and doable thing, and it's simply adding white highlights. It's a color heavy card, and with the addition of the white highlights and the black jelly roll pen for their eyes, I feel like it just kind of comes to life. So I'm trying to go pretty easy with my white highlights. I even added some little stitching detail to this gnome's hat. And I forgot to mention when I was coloring it, the gnome in the top left kind of has a plaid design. So those two colors I used for his hat, I went back with the darker of the two markers, and I just did a little plaid design. So he has a little texture as well. Nothing too big. I didn't do anything else like that on any of the rest of the images. You could do like little polka dots, you know, other little stripes, whatever you want, but I just did a simple little stitch line there on the brim of his hat, and then the rest of it is all white detail, little dots in the center of the open flowers, and then highlights. And it is a lot of white highlights here, but I really loved it. I felt like it looked so good against these pink colors. So, so pretty. Now I want to grab a couple of ink colors for my sentiments. I decided, keeping with that monochromatic theme of our card, I want to stamp the remaining 2 greetings in 2 shades of the red pink colors. So I'm going to choose Rose and Taffy Positively Saturated inks, and we're going to stamp the 2 sentiments with those 2 ink colors and then die cut them with the coordinating dies. And we're going to do that on another scrap little piece of Dolphin cardstock. I did try to keep it very consistent throughout. Sometimes simplicity is the answer. And I did make sure I got a good impression from both, and then I'm going to run those through my die cutting machine. And we're going to glue Gnomies for Life down below the bottom right, and I'm going to attach that with foam. We're also going to glue and add foam to There's Gnome One Like You, and that's going to kind of go through the middle of the card. So the sentiments are kind of stacked. That is something else that I really love. I don't feel like I've done a lot of that here during Stamptember this year, but I love multiple greetings. I kind of like multiple little sentiment strips or little spots with greetings. I feel like they kind of help move your eye through the design as well, which is very fun. Once I'm happy with the placement of my sentiments, and I did end up moving There's No One Like You a couple of times. I didn't like how it covered up the sentiment, and I wanted to leave that in to show you that I did kind of pop him up, and I decided to kind of shift him over just a little bit, and part of it is going to be tucked underneath one of those blooms on the left, and then I know the rest of this sentiment will slightly overhang this other pink bloom on the right, but not as much. I don't know. To me, it just felt like this flowed a little bit better. Once I was happy with my placement of the foam, I did take a little bit of liquid glue and pop that under anything that it was touching so that it would be nice and secure. Next, we're going to take my favorite embellishment of the season, I think, this year, which are the Spellbinders gems. These are in the color Berry, and I am going to scatter the smallest and the next smallest throughout my card. Just a few. I think I used about 5 or 6 of these gems. It doesn't need a ton, but I like that little bit of sparkle added to my card, of course. I think it was Sandy, one of our viewers here, who mentioned that the Spellbinders gems have become the new hearts, so maybe they have. I love that. I thought that was really fun. Okay, that is it, friends. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for the Clearly Besotted stamp set for Stamptember 2024 called Garden Gnomies. The supplies I used are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining me today for another paper crafting tutorial. I love being able to share with this incredible community of crafters. I want to give a huge shout out and special thank you to my amazing Patreon members. If you're interested in joining Patreon, please click the link in the description underneath the video here on YouTube. Patreon is a private community where you can support more of what I do. There is exclusive content, information, and behind-the-scenes content. Top-tier members will receive a handmade birthday card during your birthday month, access to D-Stash, and monthly exclusive lives, plus so much more. We would love to have you join our growing community. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel, click that like button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to always be notified when I have a new video. Thanks for watching!